Welcome to Safest Family on the Block. Today we're going to talk about online safety and security, things like sexting, sextortion, cyberbullying, and online scams. And we're talking with Andy Murphy, host of the Safest Family podcast. The Secure Family podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Safest Family on the Block, where knowledge is power. I'm your host, Jason, and joining me once again is the inimitable Andy Murphy of Secure Dad. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Jason. Thanks for the opportunity to get down and talk to you, and hopefully, we're going to help some people have a better understanding of what their kids' digital life looks like.
And that's a huge question for a lot of folks. I think one of the main things is that folks our age, we grew up when the most complicated piece of electronics in our house was an Atari.
Yeah,
And, some of us have had technical careers, some of us have worked in tech, but our kids speak technology as native speakers, where you and
hmm
I at best took a couple of courses in college and maybe went there for 2 weeks. We
right.
do not navigate technology as easily, as fluently, as quickly as our kids. And so there's an arms race there that we're always on the catch-up side of. So I'm really glad you're on
Right.
the show. You've had a lot of episodes on your show about online safety, and you have some personal experience with online safety and technology. Could you speak a little to that before we jump in with all the questions and I wring you dry of everything you know?
Sure, sure. So before we get started, let me say
Yeah.
the first video game system that we had in the house was this old Pong set, and all it was Pong. And my parents had it, and I don't remember why we rarely played it, but then we upgraded to the Atari 2600.
Mm.
And now, over the summer, my son and I are going to build a gaming PC together. So it's just, I sit back and I look, and he's like, he's talking about, oh, like the first generation Nintendo Switch. Says it's only as good as a PlayStation 3. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I had a PlayStation 2 for like 8 years, so you're still doing pretty good, kid, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
yeah, keeping up with technology for parents can be intimidating, but it doesn't really need to be.
Mm.
Kids have always kind of gravitated towards, tech because of video games and, smartphones and all that sort of stuff because it's fun and it's meant to be that way. But
Mm.
when we look at it, we have to understand there's basic things that we need to know. There's a lot of human behavior that's at play here. And a lot of it is if your kid doesn't have access to the device,
Mm.
then the harm goes away. So there's just some of the things that we have to keep in mind as parents in 2025.
Okay, excellent. Let's start with the biggest one. In the last year, what has changed in the landscape that the parents should know about?
It is the proliferation of AI.
Mm.
I mean, just over the last, I would just say, we're in May right now when we're recording this, and just from where we started in January of what just Chat GPT could do, and then there was all this deep seek that has come in and done things, and then there's all of these unfortunately nudify apps that will take somebody's very clean, wholesome picture and put a naked body to it, and these things are available. They're out there now. Obviously, like the Nudify apps are not going to be in your Android or your Apple App Store, but they do exist online, and it's places where kids can go if they have free reign of wherever they can go on the internet. So really, like AI is going to continue to be the thing that just produces rapid change. There are all these news stories where some kid stumbled into some sort of AI chat that told him that he needed to harm his parents or that he needed to harm himself. And a lot of those safeguards are now being put in place. And it's one of those things where we didn't know we were going to get there until we got there. And so, and parents will say, well, I don't care if it's my kid is the one that got there first. What does it matter? So I think we're starting to see technology companies understand how AI is affecting kids, and we need to understand as parents how to talk to them about it to help them understand that it is an AI bot. It's not a real person. It's not always right. You shouldn't always use it for your homework, that sort of stuff. So the AI conversation is really the one that has just been developing so much just this year alone.
Absolutely. And that piece about it not being always right, about making
Hmm.
factual errors, is something that's really important to discuss with our kids. I know a teacher who got in an argument with a high schooler because the high schooler said, well, ChatGPT says it's true. And something wasn't true. And what I challenge
Right.
every adult listening to the show to do is go ask ChatGPT to write 1,000 words about something you're an expert in
Hmm.
and count the number of meaningful errors and just assume that anything is talking about that you're not an expert in is making the same number of errors and show that to your kids. And most of our kids, any kid over 10 is going to have the same experience with something they care about.
Hmm.
And that's one good way to kind of underscore for kids that this is a tool. It's a useful tool. It can be a fun tool. It is not our unerring robot buddy.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think humanity kind of wants that. I mean, ever
Mhm.
since I saw Star Wars, I wanted a little robot to run around the house and do stuff. And now I've got this robot vacuum cleaner that will send text messages, to us and that sort of thing. And, I guess I got my droid robot after all. But I think we all just want it. We're still in the development phases of it, though. So it's not quite ready to be the companion that we always thought it was going to be or we want it to be, and it may never be. So we have to use a lot of caution.
Absolutely. So that's one of the big changes. One that's been coming across my desk more and more. It's existed for a while, but it seems to be getting more attention at least and becoming more common. Is the problem of a sextortion, which is a huge
Hmm.
issue for online safety with kids these days. What
Yes.
have you heard and learned about it in the last few months or years?
Yeah. So there's this myth. Well, first of all, let's talk about the denial. Every parent would say that would never happen to my kid, and it can.
Mm. No, I
And
absolutely. If you think your kids aren't sending revealing photos to their significant others, you are exactly as naive as any of our parents were who insisted we weren't fooling around in the back of a car.
right,
It's
right,
not
yeah,
the best thing for our kids, but it is absolutely happening at an alarming rate. And we need to
right.
be aware of it and prepare for it.
Right. I was very fortunate to have the talk with my son very early on that it's not appropriate to take pictures without your clothes on.
Yeah.
And because he that just kind of popped up one day and we just moved right into this organic conversation about it. So that's been on his excuse me, on his radar for a while. So if you're listening to this and you haven't had that conversation, even if you've got a 16-year-old, go have that conversation. Tell them that's not something that they need to be doing. But yeah, with sextortion, it's there's a lot of human vulnerabilities that are exploited. And we want to look at sextortion as being just this digital only thing. This same thing was happening with Polaroid cameras back in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and even before.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things were happening. It's just happening more because it's easier for predators to get to kids because of digital media. So understanding that sextortion can happen to your kid, and for those who may not understand, it's when a predator reaches out to your kid pretending to be another teenager maybe, and they get them to send a revealing photo, and it may be just like a guy with his shirt off or something like that, and then the conversation grows, and then the kid takes his pants off, the underwear off, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, I have now this naked
Mhm.
picture of you. Oh, I am not the 16-year-old girl who is your peer. I am a 38-year-old man in, India or something, and I'm going to email this picture to everybody that you know if you don't pay me right now $100. And so
Yeah.
the kid's like, okay, I could pay $100 right now. Whew, okay, I dodged that bullet. Then 2 or 3 days later, it's 500. Then it's going to be a
Mhm.
thousand, and this can happen quickly. The most recent story I heard was there was a young man who was just doing really well in life and decided to take a nude picture and send it to a predator, obviously not knowing. And within 20 minutes, he had committed suicide.
Yeah.
So he shot
One.
himself in the head. So,
No.
and let me
Yeah.
say here for my fellow gun owners, please lock up your firearms. Even if your child is great with a weapon and maybe competes competitively, that sort of thing, they still shouldn't have access to it simply because the threat that extortion poses and suicide and that sort of thing. So please just keep those things locked up for me.
Absolutely. One point that I recently became aware of with how predators get those pictures is they sometimes they don't even you know pretend an intimate relationship where they ask for, hey, could you send me that photo? It's coming up more and more that it's they dare somebody to flash the camera in a group chat,
Mm-hmm.
and so you
Sure.
get a 15-year-old girl to give them a quick wee for fun,
Mm-hmm.
which seems very harmless and innocuous, but because you can take screenshots, then they have a picture of that quick flashing. And this
Mm-hmm.
this is something that is, especially when you're dealing with tweens and teens who, let's face it, they are not the sharpest tools in the shed yet in terms of long-term decision making. We love them, but come on.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, their brains are still developing.
exactly. And so that it's very easy to trap a kid, even a kid who's well trained and well taught and well loved, into that situation. And so, what are some of the best things that as parents we can do if our child ends up getting that email?
Sure. So I would first say at least have the conversation with them now that hey, this could happen, and if it does happen, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
So if you can try to do that, but coming from the aspect of hey, this has just happened, um, your kid is probably going to try to hide it from you because they're embarrassed. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to see that intimate picture that they've taken. They're afraid that their technology is going to be taken away. So they really are upset. And if they are that upset, there's going to be a change in their behavior. And that is something that we as parents can obviously see. We know when something's wrong with our kid. May not know exactly what it is, but we know when something's wrong. And that's when you've just got to, as my investigator friends say, you just got to pull on that thread. And you don't do it in a threatening way. You just maybe you get in the car and you drive somewhere. Maybe you go get a milkshake at Sonic and you sit in the car and it's like, hey, I noticed something's up with you. I'm really concerned about you. I love you, whatever it is. We will work through it together because I mean, it's got to be every parent's nightmare to understand that their child took their own life over a digital image. Like, who cares? Like, we will work through it as a family, that sort of thing. So, we really need to focus on them and listen. Don't be so immediate to correct, but always be there to support and not shame them. And then once you get further and further away from the event, you can start to set up more boundaries to make sure that this doesn't happen again. It's not like you could say, oh, hey, sweetie, it's okay, whatever. But if the email does come in, um, chances are the scammer is not actually going to publish those pictures because they don't care. They're business people. They'll just be like, okay, this hot lead is now cold. I'm going to move on to the next one. And sometimes they don't even have the capability to send those pictures to other people anyway. So just cut off all communication with the scammer and report it. You can talk to your local police department. Usually, every state has an internet crimes against children. So just Google that plus your state, and there will be people there who can help you through that.
yeah, absolutely. And again, we've had this conversation before, where what the crux thing there is to be alert for change when you're with your kids.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many safety factors and security factors boil down to be alert for change.
Yep.
Whether you're in a crowded bar that's noisy and boisterous and all of a sudden it's quiet, whether
Right.
you notice that you're looking at all the cars on the road and that one is not behaving like a car should, whether it's your kid who's usually pretty happy and go lucky and really into music suddenly stops going to concerts entirely. These are all
Hmm.
just that awareness and alertness for change is such a powerful safety tool, and I'm glad that once again it's reared its head.
Yeah.
Uh, Another point about sextortion, where even if your kid never sends a photo, there are also emails coming out about, hey, we hacked the camera on your laptop and we caught you masturbating, and we
Yeah.
have a film of that thing you're clearly embarrassed about,
Hmm.
of you doing it and what was on screen while you were doing it. And they're lying, just absolutely lying.
Oh
But
yeah.
they
Yeah.
got a
It's
pack of
fabrication.
10,000 email addresses because somebody hacked a school district, and
Yeah.
they figure 1% of them are going to fall for it, and at $100 a pop, that's not a bad payday, especially if you're in a call center in Bangladesh. So
Right. Yeah. What are they going to do to you? That sort of thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Those obviously are fake. That's a crime that has been committed against you, even if it's real. I mean, it's a it's fraud at that point anyway. But yeah, so if that happens, that sort of thing, just ignore that. Just move on. Like,
Mhm.
that's just ignore it. Just delete that and move on with your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about AI, we've talked about sextortion. I know you've got a guide coming out about social media safety for families. Could you talk a little bit about the project and then about the things that you've learned while compiling it?
Right. So yeah, the guide is going to be called Scroll Smart, and it's going to be really it's for parents, and I'm going to try to tell you in 30 minutes what you really need to know about social media and protecting your kids. And the first thing to understand is that I got my first social media. I had MySpace in like maybe late college, maybe I had graduated, that sort of thing. So I was
Mhm.
like supposedly an adult, you know how it goes. But you hand a 12-year-old, Snapchat, and they're where your brain was when you as an adult first got social media and when their brain is now is not in the same place. And you can remember things through rose-colored glasses all you want. That's not reality, and that's definitely not what's going on today. And so the big concern is the social pressure, the lack of brain development, the emotions that are involved in social media are just not something that the young brain can really handle. And there's a lot of science and there's a lot of people who are saying that. There's a lot of parents who are going out and saying, "Hey, my child was, really upset or suicidal or, developed an eating disorder because of what was happening on social media." And it used to be, when we were in school, if somebody bullied you, they bullied you there in person, maybe on the bus, but you got home and it was over and it was done. But now, thanks to smartphones, social media, texting, and that sort of stuff, cyberbullying now takes the place of real life bullying, and it can happen 24/7. So, really, even if your child is extraordinarily mature, makes great decisions, and I would just don't give them social media till at least they're 16 years old. And that's not a number that I've come up with. That's a number that a lot of people who I respect have come up with. The people that I listen to are saying at least 16 for social media. If you want to try to bridge the gap with your kids, which you can do, what I did with mine is I had a Twitter account. My son was really into Fortnite, so I started following all these Fortnite accounts, and I made it's not a profile, but it's like I think it's a list. So I had this list, and I knew that everything in that list was going to be okay. So I could say, "Hey, here's what's happening with Fortnite right now in this list. You can scroll through and take a look at it, just kind of as a stopgap, so he could kind of see what was happening." But really, the thing with social media is just keep them off of it as much as you can. Of course, there are going to be kids who go out and sign up for their own, and they're going to get it. So I still think you need to have the conversation maybe in your house. If you say no, not till you're 16, still talk to your 12-year-old, 13, 14, all of that about the danger. And so maybe when they are using it behind your back, and one day you will find out, they'll at least try to exercise some caution when using it.
And again, like you said, watching for those changes in behavior because social media can become a habit really quick. It can become very
Oh
you can
yeah.
see you can see the change in the behavior. You can see if they're upset about some cyberbullying or something they saw or an image that got shared.
Right. And I
So
mean, even for me as an adult, I know that like there's just a lot of toxic stuff on social
yeah.
media. And it took me a long time to like figure it out and things like that. Or I know that you've probably experienced this. You and I have a lot of experience in what we're talking about. And then some drunk idiot on,
Mhm.
Facebook comments something to the contrary and calls you stupid for it. And it's like, well, obviously I know I'm right, but to a younger mind, that could hurt a whole lot more. It could hurt them a lot more than it could hurt me. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's one level of safety with social media. That's the mental health aspect. But
Hmm.
there are other aspects about physical health, about exposure to grooming and being pulled out of
Hmm.
your normal situation that are also present in social media. It's a channel by
Hmm.
which the entire world has access to our kids. And I'm not a technophobe. I'm not running around saying the sky is falling. I'm not mourning that Netflix took over Blockbuster. But there are some realities and risks that we need to approach this in a measured and cautious fashion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've asked about some of the stuff you learned. What's challenging you the most in your own journey with online safety right now?
Um, it's really you've got to be aware of it every day.
Mm.
And it's not like I don't want to sit here and make you think that like my son never gets to do anything fun or has any sort of like online presence because he does. It's you have to watch for that stuff. You have to watch those for those behavioral changes every day. And you got to realize that, hey, while you're dealing with, oh man, the toilet's backing up upstairs, this problem is happening at work, the car's making a funny noise, I think I'm starting to feel sick. All of those things are still happening, all while your child is challenging their digital boundaries. And so
Mm.
you can't just ignore it. Obviously, for a day or two, if it slips your mind, that sort of thing, that's understandable. But to them, the digital world is 24/7, and the desire to do things digitally is 24/7, that sort of stuff. So even on your bad day, you still got to watch out for that sort of thing. And that's where setting up safe habits and boundaries with your kids really comes into play. Like a lot of people, including in my household, we say that, no phones in the bathroom. So if you have a smartphone, you're not going to take it in the bathroom. You're not going to take it into your room. And so I can't tell you how many times I've passed by the bathroom and there's my son's phone sitting on the floor outside of the bathroom because he knows that's the thing to do. And while I hadn't realized that he had gone off to this, room to do whatever, I was like, okay, this rule that we set up, this thing that we set up just worked because I wasn't even paying attention. So
Yeah,
setting up those boundaries will help you on those days where you're not able to pay attention as much.
yeah, and it's important to lead by example with those things. I mean,
Sure, yes,
we are
right.
we are we are old enough that we successfully pooped without our phones. We can go
Right.
back to that.
Yeah.
Magazines are cool for a reason. There's a reason magazines existed back in the day. Um, but yeah,
Right.
another rule that we have in our house because we do the no bedroom, no bathroom policy.
Good.
And
Good.
the simple ways that we uh, enforce that is we have a charging station for all of our devices. And when we shut down the computer, everything gets charged plugged in there, and that's in the living room. And so
I
I
like
can,
that.
and I can while I'm turning off the lights and turning off the light over the fish bowl and putting some treats in the cat dishes and locking everything down for the night, I can just take a look. Okay, laptop. Wait a minute, and just
Uh-huh.
so you can have a non-intrusive into your kid's way of just kind of checking. And when
Right.
I notice that the phone's not there, most of the time it's still in his backpack or he left it on the bathroom kitchen counter, rather, something like that.
Right.
But that family charging station is a really good way of just not of enforcing and supporting the rule without getting in your kid's face about where his phone is and like putting him up against the wall and frisking him before bed every night.
Yes, I like that idea a lot. I remember this is a strange thing, but I took a tour of Alcatraz
Mm,
probably like 20 years ago, and we were like in the kitchen, and I noticed on the wall they had all of these black outlines of the knives in the kitchen. And so when somebody used a knife, they had to put it back in that slot. And if the warden or whoever walked by and they weren't cooking and they saw that black outline of a knife, but there was no knife in front of it, they knew that they had a problem. And
yeah.
so it was just kind of, I like the quick visual reference that you have there with the family charging station. I do something similar in my home. But yeah, it's just a quick way to check to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. There's another point that you made about how sometimes we have bad days. We're busy, we're sick, we're tired, and if we miss a trick once in a while, that's we all miss tricks about everything important once in a while. But having the consistent habit of maintaining the boundaries and checking the boundaries is important. I think one thing that a lot of parents misunderstand, and I felt this way for a long time until I learned, was we grew up with parents throwing us in front of the TV when they didn't want to deal with us anymore,
True.
when they were having a rough day.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us feel that screen time, YouTube, video games, social media, just, hey, take your phone and your headphones over there in the corner. Mommy needs 10 minutes. Um,
Right.
but there's a huge difference between watching
Hmm.
television and engaging on social media,
Right.
especially social media.
Right.
And it's worth considering, and I'm not here to shame anybody. Parenting is hard enough without me copping an attitude at you. But there are mistakes that we are making because the world kids live in today is so different from the world that we lived in that we're
Right.
unprepared for certain situations.
Right. Yeah, when our parents were plopping us down in front of like, Sesame Street and He-Man and She-Ra and all that, those were all things that were regulated by the FCC.
Mhm.
Like they had, all these rules that they had to follow and whatever. And now, and this is a point I wanted to bring up a little bit earlier. You can go on social media, and if you just have that unchecked with your kids, there's a lot of violence, a ton
Yeah.
of violence. Like, I mean, I'm seeing videos of people dying on social media almost every day. And I remember when the war in Ukraine broke out, all of these videos started surfacing of what was happening over there. And like I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is horrible. And then also like kids could also see those same videos. And so a lot of people just automatically think, hey, I want to keep my kids safe from predators and, sexually explicit content. And I totally get that and respect that. But also there's a lot of violence out there. There's a lot of hate speech that is also out there. You have to really look at the information that your kids are taking in because it may not fit with your family values.
Yeah, exactly. So that's hugely important. So
Mm.
we talked about social media, we've talked about extortion, we've talked about all kinds of stuff. We're coming close to the end of our half hour. So what haven't we talked about that we would really like to make sure more people know?
Hmm. Um, the back end of all of this is the data that's actually being collected on your child.
Mm,
All of these social media networks, they are free, and that means that you and I are the currency.
yeah,
They're tracking where our phones go, what we look at, what we're scrolling through, what we click on, that sort of thing. I don't think it's enough anymore just to not post pictures of your kid on social media that can be taken and manipulated. You now have to understand about how your kid's phone is building a profile on who they are at the age of like 12 and 13 and 14. I was saying back in 2016 that one day we are going to be electing presidents based on Google searches that they had when they were 12 and 13 years old. And
mm,
that day is actually coming a whole lot faster than I ever thought. So the data that is being collected on your kid, the profile that's being built about them is going to follow them. And
yeah,
that is not fair. It's not cool. So the things that our kids are looking at like 12 and 13 and 14, good or bad, is going to shape what big companies like Google and Meta think about them, the ads that they're served, and maybe one day if we get to some sort of like social credit, what that's going to mean for them. Just thinking big picture. So
well, they're
the
already
the
doing that. They have a program like that in China right now.
oh yeah, you're right. They
Yeah,
do. Yes, I'm just thinking in the U.S. And
yeah,
so it's like
yeah,
we're I've got a lot of concerns this week alone about data collection and how that's going to be used against us, and observing us and just how we live our daily lives.
yeah. And now I don't want to start a debate on this program. I tend to be on the opposite side. At this point, I view privacy, which I view as different from security.
Hmm.
Security is
Yes.
logging to my home network. Privacy is knowing what books I bought last week. I see privacy much the way I see stick shifts. It's a quaint notion that I feel a little attached to, but isn't really a thing in the modern world.
Mm.
That the ship of privacy has sailed in all meaningful senses. That's my own viewpoint. However, the important thing is that we know what's going on with privacy and make an informed decision.
Hmm.
Where I think that most people, and I didn't know until I started getting into the safety sphere and talking with a lot of online experts about how deep that rabbit hole goes and how completely exposed our data is.
Hmm.
Um, and so most folks need to go find out how bad it is and then decide what you're going to do about it. I may
Right.
have just given up, less than made an informed decision. But and what I really hope is like we're talking about making decisions for president based on their Google search.
Hmm.
At some point, we're going to reach a point of mutually assured destruction where if you and I are running against each other for Congress, you threaten to talk about that girl I dated when I was 22, but I threaten to let everybody know how much you like the Grateful Dead. And
Hmm.
then we're both humiliated, and either we both keep it shut, or everybody knows all their secrets are out all the time and anyway, and we just all lighten up about superficial things. But
Right.
maybe I'm being Pollyanna about it. The main point
I
being
don't
that
know.
we have different opinions. We got to those opinions by doing the research, finding out
Right.
exactly how terrible it is, and then making a choice. And I really encourage all parents to find resources and find out what's going on. Electronic Frontier Foundation is still doing some of the best work and research on the topic.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a good group that I like to listen to, and they make a lot of great points to broaden horizons of, hey,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just one small thing that's happening in this community, but take a what would that be like if it were in more places? What would that be
Yeah.
like if it affected you personally? So yeah, EFF is doing good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are living in times, and I don't want to blame one administration over another, because I think both sides of the party are, the door's been open to shenanigans. We're looking at people who are losing their visas because they wrote a blog post that the people
Yeah.
in power didn't agree with. And,
Hmm.
there is a certain party in power now, but I have no illusions that the other party isn't going to be up to the same thing when it's their turn, because the door has now been opened.
Right. Yeah, like we opened that door with the Patriot Act after 9/11, and it's never
Yeah.
been closed. And
Yeah.
there are people, I think people had a lot of good intent with it when it first
Mm-hmm.
came out, but today, 24 years later,
Mm-hmm.
it's turned into something else.
Yeah. Well, scared, angry people rarely make good long-term decisions. And
True.
September 12th, 2001, we were really scared and we were really angry.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Andy, the secure dad, thank you so much for coming on yet again. I know my audience loves it when you come on, and I always love visiting with you. For those who don't know, where can they find you?
Sure. So you can find me at thesecuredad.com. That is also my handle for Instagram and TikTok and whatever else there is out there. I have a podcast of which you have been a guest several times. It is the Secure Family Podcast, and you can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Excellent. And folks, if you haven't already, I really recommend checking out Andy's work. He's one of the top folks working in the world today. And like me, one of the things I appreciate about your perspective is most of the other people who are doing what we're doing, they're retired Navy SEALs, they're career
Hmm.
cops. Their
Hmm.
context around crime and violence is different from civilians like us. And
Right.
sometimes their assumptions are just off the mark because they have a different lived experience. Where you come to it from the point of view of a dad, somebody who
Hmm.
hasn't been trained very effectively not to hesitate before killing somebody, for example.
Right.
And
Right.
it's,
Right.
yeah. And,
Yeah, your
the,
life experience drives different results. And so, yeah, yeah. And I listen to those Navy SEAL people as well,
yeah,
but I also appreciate you also coming at it from a dad's perspective and realizing that there's a whole lot of balance out there.
yeah. They have really good information, but it might not fit the template of our lives. And so I
Correct.
really appreciate what you do, because yours does fit this soccer mom mini dad existence, or minivan dad existence that we're a part of. So thank you again, Andy, and thank you everyone for watching. See you next time. Stay safe till then. The best time to make your family safer is yesterday. The second best is right now. So take a minute to identify one thing you learned from this interview that you can take action on today, and another you can make a longer-term project. Speaking of action, if I earned it today, go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. I'm not sure why it helps as much as it does, but it's absolutely essential for a growing channel like this one. If you'd like to support this mission even more deeply, you can sign up for a newsletter and bonus content free over at our Patreon. You'll find the link here. As always, thanks for listening. Stay safe. See you next time.